Yo, what's going on, Time Planet? It is your boy King Time next year back with another video, and you guys already know the deal. Today we are going to be doing what if Naruto had Magnet released. You guys have probably been waiting for another upload from me for a while now, so I'm not even going to hold you guys for too long. Let's just get straight into the video. Now, when it came on to Naruto, you see, he was a peculiar child, to say the very least. He always knew that he was different. At first he thought that, well, there was just something wrong with him. There was something wrong that would cause for people to want to avoid him like the plague, kick him out of their stores, give him evil glares. This sort of treatment would leave Naruto in a state of longing, though, a longing for love and care from another. He'd seen how some of the other kids, some of the other villager kids had been treated throughout their lives, how their parents would often treat them. And you see, Naruto was an orphan. He didn't know who his parents were. All he knew was that this was his life. He had no family to really call his own, nobody who was really much of a parent to him. I mean, sure, he could kind of mention the third Hokage, but he wasn't really all that involved in Naruto's life to really call him that much of a father figure. I mean, Naruto, I guess you could say that was pretty much the closest thing to a father figure, but it wasn't the best model in Naruto's life. And with all of the things that Naruto had to deal with growing up, he figured that in order to actually be loved by others, to become admired by others, well, he would have to earn it. He would have to become somebody noteworthy in this village. He had to become somebody who was of a high status. He would actually look at Hiruzen, or look to Hiruzen, you could say, in this manner. When really thinking about it, although Naruto didn't necessarily have the greatest relationship with Hiruzen, he did recognize that this man was greatly respected by the villagers. He was the third Hokage, for crying out loud, and this was when things began to click for Naruto. If he ever wanted to become admired, to become loved by the villagers, to become respected, he would understand that he would need to become Hokage. He would join the academy in hopes of becoming a ninja. It was the first step towards his goal after all. Unfortunately though, Naruto noticed early on that he had difficulty focusing in school. He'd get subpar grades and would fall asleep during some of the lectures. The only times that Naruto actually paid attention would be when Iruka talked about Keki Genkais, dojutsus, and such. Although they didn't have knowledge of all of the Keki Genkai out there were a couple of noteworthy ones that the Leaf Village managed to learn about. Ones that were actually outside of the village. You see, there were Kage Genkai is like boil release. I don't know, lava release. Shoot, there was actually a Kage Genkai by the name of Magnet release actually. And this last one, this one intrigued Naruto. Magnet release, what was that? Apparently, this Kage Genkai was a combination of the wind and earth element. Though Naruto wasn't able to understand it all at once, he was eventually able to simplify the concept in his own head. Those with magnet release, well, they could apparently generate their own sort of force, which could be applied to other substances. With the use of those substances, a magnet release user could create a myriad of effects depending on their item of choice. Naruto also learned about some other Kage Genkais, like the ones I've mentioned before, but the one that really interested Naruto, of course, would be magnet release. He didn't know anything about his lineage, well, besides the fact that he was apparently an Uzumaki, judging by his last name. Even then, that was still somewhat questionable, considering his blonde hair, and most Uzumakis had red hair. But he never really questioned it that much. He just wanted to figure out something. He had no clue as to where to really start when it came on to finding out what sort of chakra natures he had. But he would decide to actually check with Aruka one day after class. Maybe he had the answers towards finding out what sort of nature release he had, or chakra natures. He would approach Aruka and ask him about it. To which Aruka would be pleasantly surprised seeing that Naruto actually had an interest in wanting to find that out. He would end up having a test for Naruto. This test eventually showed that Naruto apparently had two forms of nature releases, you could say. He had wind release and, well, earth release. Naruto would actually be excited finding this out. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance he could have the magnet release Kiki Genkai after all. Naruto would actually test this out by attempting to exude that magnetic force Aruka would usually talk about during class on some of his shuriken. At first, it was just a failure upon failure. Honestly, Naruto felt like giving up any hope in him actually, well, having the Kiki Genkai after several failed attempts at applying force upon his shuriken. Right when he was about to give up though, Hiruzen would actually walk up to Naruto with a smile on his face. He was curious as to what Naruto was actually doing. He would actually be surprised to hear that the boy was trying to emit a magnetic force upon his shuriken. This would actually lead Hiruzen to another question though. The boy, he had magnet release? Naruto would actually explain how he found out about his chakra natures, which would further intrigue Hiruzen. There was a certain level of likelihood that it was genuinely possible Naruto possessed the Kiki Genkai. I mean, his father didn't seem to possess it, but maybe he kind of got it from his mother, or maybe he got it from a mixture of the two. Maybe it might just skip a generation or something. He wasn't exactly sure. There was a certain level that, well, there was a certain level of likelihood that he may have had it, but at the same time there was a certain level of likelihood that he just didn't, and he just maybe got a faulty test. Unfortunately, the way Naruto was trying to go about this was just wrong. They realized very early on that, well, Naruto had pretty poor, well, chakra control, and if he was actually, well, a user of magnet release, if he was going to actually be a user of magnet release, or, well, if it did turn out that he had magnet release, I should really be saying, he would need to have some form of chakra control at the very least. With how Naruto was doing it right now, Hiruzen would realize that this was actually really unstable. He would actually make it explicitly clear to Naruto everything that he was doing wrong in this situation. Hiruzen, although he wasn't a user of magnet release, he did have experience fighting against magnet release users in the past, and he had also heard stories from some other jonin, or jonin, whatever, you know what I'm trying to say. Basically, he had experience between fighting them and hearing stories about them. He had heard many stories of having, well, some magnet release user on the battlefield from some of the jonin sensei. Shoot, some of them they had to actually really run away from some of these users. These users were known as rather dangerous throughout their time on the battlefield. Some of them were so dangerous, as a matter of fact, that, well, some of their comrades actually ended up dying to said users of magnet release, but they were able to actually gain some info each time about the magnet release users, just how they operated and such. They also looked at, well, the One Tails, Shukaku. They had paid attention to how they ended up, well, using their abilities. They realized that with some of the users of Magna Release, they actually mimicked Shukaku, so they would actually pay attention to how, well, the one-tailed beast operated, and they would pay attention to the Magna Release users. Although with some of these Magna Release users, somehow they ended up doing things completely different from the other ones, which would lead, well, Hiruzen to even more questions, but he realized that there was a bit of a base for each and every last one of the Magna Release users. And this base was, well, the theory that Hiruzen was going to be using for Naruto. Hiruzen would first start off, well, with a simple lesson. This lesson would, of course, being how to better manage your chakra control. Afterwards, it would be them simply applying his chakra to the shuriken. Well, this would have taken a couple of weeks, at least when it came on to the chakra control. After Naruto had gained a handle on his chakra control, they would move on to learning how to, well, apply this chakra to the shuriken. Once Naruto had gained a bit of a grasp on chakra control, him using his chakra on the shuriken seemed like he was just taking off his training wheels, like when it came on to riding a bicycle. The amount of focus that it actually required for Naruto to keep a steady flow of chakra on the shuriken caused him to sweat, and he would actually eventually collapse in exhaustion from this strenuous task. This would have confirmed it though in Hiruzen's mind. Naruto did indeed have Magna Release. Naruto didn't notice it considering his deep concentration at the time, but Hiruzen did. Some of the metallic objects the two of them had, at least on their persons, were being drawn towards that shuriken that Naruto was concentrating so hard on. Naruto would continue to practice his usage of Magna Release, finding that he could effectively create his own magnetic field through the usage of his shuriken. He would often do this rather mischievously though. Mischievously. And the more proficient that Naruto became with Magna Release though, the more confident he actually became. Eventually, he'd start stealing valuables from some of the villagers. He would be known as a menace for this. But he figured that he could sell these metallic objects and use the money to get something else besides expired milk. He was growing tired of the indigestion he'd get each time while trying to have a bowl of cereal in the morning. He'd get chased by the villagers every now and then, but Naruto was becoming faster and more proficient each time. He'd even find himself using some of the metal in his possession as springboards. Yeah, he was learning new tricks with his Magna Release, and the villagers realized that this kid was going to become even more trouble as time went on, because with how Naruto was doing it, how Naruto was using his Magna Release, it was literally him using the metallic objects as platforms to jump off at times. By holding them in mid-air, he was becoming more of a nuisance than ever before, and Naruto would also have, well, became a bit more popular and infamous in the academy thanks to his Kekigenkai. He still wasn't as popular as this emo boy in his class, Asuke Uchiha, but hey, it was at least something. People would actually talk to him and not to simply berate him anymore. Sometimes he'd actually get praised by some of his classmates. It was a good feeling to finally be recognized for his hard work. This was all the motivation Naruto needed in order to continue developing more skills for his Kekigenkai. By the time Naruto was ready for graduation, he would have managed to make it to the upper middle of the pack. He wasn't the absolute greatest at taijutsu, but he was a whole other beast when it came onto a bukijutsu. Naruto had made it a necessity over the years to keep some form of metallic object on his person. Even if that metallic object was, well, just a coin. He could make good use of it one way or another thanks to his Kekigenkai. Thanks to the couple of years of him practicing chakra control via the usage of his chakra on metallic objects, Naruto would have actually been able to create a clone. This was the last requirement towards his graduation. He would feel great after receiving a headband from Haruka, but while walking home, he'd noticed Mizuki talking to one of the students from the academy. He'd questioned what they were up to and decided to keep a close eye on them. It did seem rather suspicious after all. Maybe he was wrong though, and it was probably just Mizuki giving the kids some pointers on how to study or whatever. Maybe he was just looking too into it. Naruto would end up realizing that he had the right to be suspicious of Mizuki though. You see, Naruto would have kept track of the kids' movements and ended up finding out that they stole the Forbidden Scroll. You know, the Scroll of Sealing. It was a scroll full of forbidden jutsus, and it wasn't meant to be in the hands of just some kid. Naruto would immediately shoot a couple of kunai at the kid, stopping them in their tracks. Naruto would go on to interrogate the boy, finding out that Mizuki put him onto this, and that he would be able to graduate if he stole the Scroll of Sealing. It was apparently a secret way of graduating, and all he'd have to do afterward was, well, just give it to Mizuki. Naruto would express his doubts about this though, of this being a way of actually graduating. The kid would try to argue back and run, but Mizuki would appear right at that moment. He would curse under his breath seeing Naruto though. He was at a disadvantage considering Naruto's Kekigenkai. And he just so happened to, well, be sporting a giant shuriken this time around. Yeah, this wasn't looking good for Mizuki whatsoever. You see, he would try to use Talk no Jutsu on Naruto in hopes of persuading him to allow the kid to give him the scroll. Naruto would simply ask why though. What could he possibly want with the Scroll of Sealing? Why would he have a kid, a child, go after the scroll as well? Mizuki would begin to sweat, realizing he didn't have much time here. Persuasion wasn't going to work on Naruto, apparently, so he had to go about this in a different way. He had to go with plan B, and that would be to simply speed blitz the boy. He had no doubt in his mind that he was stronger and faster than the inexperienced Genin. I can't pronounce words, okay? Genin. As soon as he tried to form some hand signs, Naruto would shoot a kunai at his hand though. Mizuki would scream in pain, but Naruto would quickly shut him up by knocking him unconscious via the usage of him hitting Mizuki in the back of the head with the blunt side of one of his other kunai. When Haruka arrived at the scene, he'd show visible confusion on his face. Naruto would explain the situation to him though, and he had the other boy to confirm his story. Haruka would be impressed and actually applaud Naruto for his efforts. Mizuki would receive some medical treatment for his injured hand after he was arrested. He would be interrogated and, well, be found guilty. As a reward for Naruto's efforts though, Hiruzen would actually decide to bestow upon Naruto, well, a bit of a gift. This gift being Mizuki's Fuma Shuriken. Naruto would surprise the third Hokage though by, well, using it as a floating device. Considering Naruto's Cookie Genkai and what he had displayed thus far, he supposedly shouldn't have been all that surprised to find that Naruto could do that. After all, he'd heard of all the stories of Naruto being such a mischievous brat when it came on to using his Magna release in order to steal from some of the villagers, but Hiruzen kinda just let it slide for the most part. He did let Naruto off with some warnings from time to time if he went a bit overboard, but he just saw Naruto just messing around for the most part, and he still got in trouble sometimes if he wasn't able to escape the villagers in time. The way that Hiruzen saw it, it was essentially practice for Naruto for right now. Practice for when he was going to become a proper shinobi. After all, Magna Release was going to be quite a bit of an asset on the battlefield for Konoha, and it would be better to allow Naruto to flourish using his said Kenki Genkai rather than try to diminish his, growth. The next day, Naruto would be introduced to his teammates who would consist of the emo himself, Sasuke, Uchiha, and the useless pink-haired brat as well, Sakura Haruno. Then Jonin Sensei was apparently going to be Kakashi Hatake. There was one issue with Kakashi though. He was late. Yeah, everyone would meet their senseis while Team 7 was still waiting in silence for an extra hour before he finally showed up. The group was already annoyed, and this guy's excuse was pretty horrible as well. He got lost on the way of life. Was he being serious right now? What kind of excuse is that? Like, you couldn't even just say, "Oh, I had to help an old lady across the street or something." Nah, he just said he got lost on the way of life. What does that even mean? The three were convinced he was just on shrooms and he wouldn't be a proper fit as a sensei whatsoever. But Kakashi would soon prove them wrong though. After getting introductions out of the way, Kakashi would explain that it would be best that the three of them don't eat breakfast tomorrow. There was a very good reason for that. You see, they might just throw up with the intensity of what would happen tomorrow. And that's basically where I'm going to be ending part 1 for now. Yeah, if you guys are interested in seeing more parts, because I know Naruto doesn't really seem to do that well on the channel, but it's still worth a shot. Leave a like and a comment. Hit that subscribe button if you've been rocking with my content for a while now, and maybe share the video so it'll help with the algorithm. Maybe build up some more views for this video, because I have a feeling it's not going to do well. But that's all I gotta really say. It's your boy King Ty Next signing out. Peace.
Rifty.